Watch how one flower background stamp can turn into two completely different cards. In this video I will show you how I create colorful backgrounds using NUVO aqua shimmer powders and how those backgrounds can be transformed into a fun card or into a more stylish design. Hello, it's CisVolk. Here you see the two stamped and heat embossed backgrounds that I made and showed in the previous video. I used the flower background stamp from the Bloom and Zoom collection from CarlaCreates by Vaessen Creative. I stamped one panel with VersaFine Onyx Black ink and heat embossed it with clear embossing powder from Sizzix. The other panel I stamped with clear Versamark ink and heat embossed it with silver pearl embossing powder from Ranger. You could also use a white embossing powder for this. If you want to see how I did this, you can watch the previous video. A link to that video is in the top right corner or below in the description of this video. For heat embossing, inks, paints and glue, I often use this heat-resistant mat. It is easy to clean and it protects your desk. You can easily unfold it and lay it flat on your desk. I keep it in place with two magnets. To color the flower card panels, I will be using NUVO aqua shimmer powders. They are very fun to use and the result is always a fun surprise, you will see. I tap a little powder from the color Atlantic Burst and then I tap some fantail firecracker on the hearts of the flowers. It is hard to see how many powder is needed, but trust me, you don't need a lot of powder. Only one little grain can make a stain on a fresh sheet of white paper. Last I tap some sunray crozet onto the empty spaces on the paper. Using a distress sprayer or another water sprayer, you will moisten the mica powder, which will react with the water and burst into a colorful explosion of color. For an easy background you don't need to add a lot of color, but for this stamped image I will add quite a lot of water, which will spread and fill all the spaces of the paper. Where there is not enough color to my liking, I add some more powder and some more water. I can shift this a bit, or tilt it, so the water and color pigments can run. Now I will take it aside to let it dry. Don't heat set this. That is not a good idea because the embossing powder will melt again and sink into the paper. Here you see the result after the shimmer powder has dried completely overnight. I will do the same with the white card panel. Again I start with the color Atlantic Burst. I want to spread the powder a bit because there's one area where a lot of powder fell and I like it to spread over the panel. Next I add some fantail firecracker. Again I try to aim some orange in the hearts of the flowers. And to fill up the gaps, I add some sunray crozet color. With this technique you never know where the powder will land and what the final result will be. I try to control the powder a little by moving it with the brush. Because you can hardly see any green, I add a little more green. But because I spread it with the brush, it is not very visible, even though it is really there. I add the color very lightly and carefully. After spraying water, I can see how much pigment is actually on the paper. The explosion effect you get from spraying water is awesome. You can immediately see that I added too much green at the end, however it was not visible before adding the water. You can still dab off some unwanted color with a paper towel from places where you want to change the color. And then add some new powder and some new water. I do that where to make the hearts orange. As long as it is not to my liking, I can dab off some water and add new mica powder. I can also move some color with a brush. You can even watercolor with it. Just whatever you like. I enjoy playing with the surprising effect, because you never really know how it will look in the end. Watch out when too many colors meet, because you can get mud. But even then you can dab it off and start again. The mica powders react very much like watercolor. The raised embossed lines act like a resist. The ink stays within the lines, and when you tilt the paper, the water runs into the small compartments. This is how the card panel looks now it has dried. Isn't it pretty? Let us make two totally different cards with them. I will start by using the dies that come with the Bloom and Zoom collection. Here I have the gorgeous flower edge die. It cuts on one side and embosses on the other side. So when you run it through the die cutting machine like this part of the paper will stay attached to the die cut part. Die cut it in the length direction, so the die cutting machine has the least effort cutting it. I cut out of a piece of A6 paper. Sometimes it can be hard to release such an intricate die cut like this beautiful one. Be very careful and use a tool that makes your life easier. I use a foam pad and place the die cut with the back side facing up. Then I roll over it with a roller, which is called a die brush or die cleaning brush for wafer thin dies. And that helps to push out all the tiny pieces of paper with almost no effort. You can clearly see the beautiful embossed line and the delicate die cut almost like a lace edge. I take another one that I cut earlier and layer them on top of each other for a stronger and more sturdy effect. The background panel that has already dried will go behind this beautiful flower lace border. I can choose to make an A6 card or a square card. I will make a square card. For decorating the card, I will make some more matching paper, using the same 3 colors again. I will use this paper to die cut some shapes from. These pieces I can heat set to dry because it will do no harm to the ink or the paper. However, keep in mind that the water can run and that can create harder edges. If you do not like that effect, just let it dry overnight. Depending on the amount of water, it can take some time to dry. If you use the heat tool, remember to dry the back as well, so you can make the paper flat again. I also made another background with a little more yellow and green, just so I have a few more options to choose from when die cutting. Enjoy watching me die cut the pieces and assemble the card. After that, I will create another card with the other flower background image. Here is my first finished card. Very fun to make and not difficult at all. I used the leftover die cuts I had to decorate the inside of the card. Let's now use the other background. This fly stamp set from the Bloom & Zoom collection is so funny. I will use this fly to decorate the other flower background image. Not feeling so fly? Hope your birthday is super. Keep calm and buzz on. Poop happens. All fun text to choose from. I will use this paper as a background. But if you place the fly directly on top of it, the whole card becomes too busy. For coloring the fly, I will use the same colors, but it should not disappear into the background. I have a little trick for that later. For stamping, I do what I always do. I stamp on Florence Smooth White watercolor paper, 200 grams, with VersaFine Onyx Black ink. And then I heat emboss it with clear embossing powder from Sizzix. I will also color the fly with the NUVO shimmer powders, in the same colors that I used for the flowers. For this I use a Tombow water brush with a fine tip. I clean the brush very well first, and then I dab it dry on a piece of paper towel. I pick up a very tiny amount of powder on the tip of the water brush. It's just like a tiny grain of powder. That is already more than enough to color the whole area. With gentle dabbing movements, I apply the pigment to the paper. I do the same for the cheeks. When I want to switch to another color, I wipe the brush again on the piece of paper towel, or I rinse it and dab it dry. If you want to color very pigmented areas, you use almost no water. For the wings, I want them a little lighter, so I mix the powder with just a tiny bit of water. By making small circular movements, you can easily pick up pigment that has settled into the paper and move it to another part of the image. That is how I color the whole fly. The fun thing about coloring with this pigment powder is that every time you pick up a new grain of powder, the color can be slightly different. A little pile of powder contains different shades of ink, and that makes coloring with it fun and surprising. When the ink has dried, you can still make it lighter by adding some water, but you can also make it darker by adding another layer. It can happen that the brush of the water brush becomes slightly stained by the ink, but that doesn't matter. Watch me color the rest of the fly, or skip to the next chapter where I finish the card and share more card making tips, of course. I cut out the fly, leaving a small white border around it. This will help the fly stand out later against that busy flower background. I will also use a piece of vellum, also called parchment paper. I use this vellum from Vaessen Creative. By placing a piece of vellum on top of a busy background, you can make the background much easier to use. The size I take is 8.5 cm by 12.8 cm. That is 2 cm shorter than the card panel on both sides, so 1 cm smaller on each side. The fly will sit on top of the vellum and I can use the vellum to stamp the text on it. I will make this into a birthday card. I hope your birthday is super. Fly high. I place all the stamps that I will use loosely on the vellum first, so I can position them nicely. I will use the curved lines to accentuate the movement of the wings. I use the grid on my work mat to position the stamp straight. A small magnet makes sure the smooth vellum stays in place. I use a clear block to pick up the stamps and stamp them. With an embossing pouch, I wipe over the vellum. This will make sure that during heat embossing, the powder will only stick to the stamped areas and not to places where I might have left fingerprints. I press evenly everywhere and try not to shift the stamp. I lift the clear block straight up. Here as well, I emboss with clear embossing powder. Before heating, always blow gently over the surface to remove any loose grains of powder. When heating vellum, use the lowest heat setting. Vellum can warp very quickly. Also heat both sides of the vellum. That helps prevent warping as well. Remember to let the heated powder cool down before you touch it, or you might ruin it. Attaching vellum can sometimes be a bit tricky. Do not use glue because that can create stains that will show through. Double-sided tape will also remain visible. I use 3D foam squares to attach the fly with some dimension. In the places where the fly is attached to the vellum, I place the same foam squares again, but now on the other side of the vellum. You can only place the foam squares in spots where they cannot be seen, and the only place left for that is the bold text. When you cut the foam squares into smaller pieces, you can easily place a small strip on the block letters. Let us first attach the flower background panel to a folded card base. I prefer to do this with double-sided tape. You can also use glue, but when I use glue my card often starts to warp, and I think that is a shame. If you always place the panel against the fold of the card first, it will always align nicely on the card. If it still sticks out a little, you can always trim the excess later. With a guillotine trimmer, this works very well. It also never becomes dull because it keeps itself sharp. Now I can remove the backing from the foam squares and attach the piece of vellum with the fun fly to the card. You cannot see the foam squares because they sit exactly behind the fly and behind the bold text. Because there are 2 layers of foam squares, the card also gets a bit of dimension. The color of the background is still clearly visible, but it is not too busy, so the fly really stands out nicely. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed seeing how one flower background stamp can turn into 2 completely different cards. And how much fun is it to play with NUVO aqua shimmer powers to create colorful backgrounds. As you saw, the same background can easily become a fun card or a more stylish design, just by changing a few elements. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and leave a comment below. I always enjoy reading your reactions, and it also really helps my channel to grow. If you do not want to miss my new videos, make sure to subscribe to my channel and turn on the notification bell. I share a new video every Monday. If you would like to see more inspiration, you can also follow me on Facebook, Pinterest and Instagram. There you will find more card making inspiration. In the description below this video you will also find links to the products I used. Some of these are affiliate links, which means that when you use them, you support my channel at no extra cost to you. You can also find more information about the products there. If you enjoyed working with these powders, or if you would like to learn more about them, you can also check my other videos where I use NUVO shimmer powders in different ways. I will place one of those videos on the end screen for you. Enjoy watching and enjoy card making! I will see you next Monday. Bye bye!